who knows what it's going to be? I don't know why I started telling you this. Well, it's because so much of the stuff that you want to learn in this kind of session and others, you want to learn to make it reflexive so that you don't think about it. So that it's not a big deal. The concentration thing you'll see. If you practice it, it will become something that you always do. And as a consequence, you'll be imperturbable no matter what the awful surroundings are. But you won't be paying any attention to that part. You won't notice it. You'll just be doing your work. And if the building's burning down, someone will come and interrupt you and tell you to get out. But it won't affect you. It won't keep you from your work. Actually, you don't go into a trance. You'll know the burning building is collapsing, and you'll get out just in time. So anyway, what we're going to do this afternoon, and what I'd like to give you this assignment, is to think about a story. Well, two stories. Let's think about a triumph and a tragedy. Choose one of each and be thinking about telling that story. Now, this wants to be a story that is not so deep in your experience as to be troublesome for you. It's a good idea if you choose a story that is over. Not one that you're grappling with now. Well, that's because you want to be able to perform operations on this story, and if you're in the midst of it, you really can't do that. So, if you're thinking about, you're going to think about two different stories. We're not going to have a whole lot of time today to do the listening exercise, but if you decide you want to do it tomorrow, then you'll have an evening to rehearse and to craft and whatnot. But for now, for today, just think of the two stories and kind of ponder them, and we'll have a chance today to start telling a story in a histrionic way, and you'll have a chance to start listening to a story in a histrionic way. The biology of that is as follows. And this is by the way, if you want to know, this is the key to acting. Actors do what they do by behaving as if the given circumstances were real. That is, if you're a prince of Denmark and you're really, really pissed off at your mom, you go ahead and go into her bedroom with the intention of killing her. It's a very hard part to play because if your intention isn't serious and real, nobody will want to watch you. So that's what you do. What your guys are going to do with that is you're going to learn today, tomorrow maybe, to tell a story by describing what's inside of you, by creating the story in you and then describing it, not narrating the process or not reading some prose that you invented and kind of memorized, but describing what's in your mind and heart and sharing it with other people. When you do that, the biology of it is this. We have a whole section of our brain somewhere in the brain which is devoted to, let's say, mimicking. It's devoted to performing the actions that you observe. They found out about this when they were studying monkeys, and they had electrodes on these monkeys. And somebody noticed that when a monkey was eating a banana, the electrodes on another monkey were firing off as if the monkey was eating a banana. Well, it turns out that's the case with humans, only like times 10. We've got a real setup for that, and it's one of the reasons why we're not monkeys anymore. We've got this thing where we are sympathetic and empathic with other creatures like us. Now, we see this every day. You yawn, and whoever's watching you yawns. You can't resist. You can't help it. If you're a psychopath, you can resist these things, but you can't. If I come into the room and I'm really sad. It doesn't make any difference what I try to do to keep you from knowing that. You will know. What you will know is not an interpretation of my face. You will not say, oh, man, I see that guy has lines beside his mouth that I didn't recognize from before. I'll bet he's unhappy. No, you will be unhappy in your heart. And you will recognize that. And you'll know it's coming from me. Now you can see how that works for actors, how they exchange that, and can you see how that works for you in the audience? When you're at the movies, there's two reasons why you're going to cry at the movie. One, you're going to cry at your own response to the sad situation. But two, you're going to cry in an absolutely automatic response to the grief of the character on the screen. Don't have to go into what a really complicated exercise of the brain that is. Much better in the theater where the guy's in the room with you and you can respond right in person. You don't have to resolve an image of shadows flashing in front of you. Only think how busy that is. But that's what's going on. And in a theater, when you're with a whole bunch of other people, you're also going to get the beams and rays from your partner on either side. What they are feeling is going to impact on you, and you're going to feel that too. So what we're going to do about listening is try to get to the place where we're beyond the content and at the action. Again, this is what you do when you're watching a movie. What the character says, that's important, but that's not the real thing. It's what caused the character to say that. It's a good idea to think of that. You think of watching a play or a movie. If it's well made, dialogue is the character's last resort. Characters tried everything else, and the only thing that'll work is to say, well, shit, or open the door. And the content, open the door, that can be 100 different actions, depending on what the character is doing. If I say, open the door, please, that's another thing. Open the door, please. 180 degrees different. If you're going to react to those, the reason I said it the way that I said it was that I had to say it that way because that's what I felt. That's what happened when I was there. One reason why acting's so scary. It's like the opera singer. You can't always be sure that you've accessed it. And so when you say what is reflexively right, sometimes it's reflexively wrong and really stupid. Okay? Makes sense? That we're going to try to apply that. Try that mirror neuron biology. Try to apply that to listening, not in emotionally charged circumstances, but in work-charged circumstances, where you need to know what's really going on. And if you are at all sophisticated about yourself and anybody else, you really know that what you hear is not always what's going on. So you want to be able to know that. That's what the release is for, because you have to release yourself to be willing to accept that energy from another person. You can resist it, you can harden your heart, as we say. But if you really want to know what's going on, you have to open your heart. You have to release your heart. That makes sense? So we're going to apply that, not to Hamlet going into the bedroom to murder his mom, or not to Hamlet acting like a complete jerk and telling the best actors in the nation how to do. Not even acting. That's little theater shit. Speak the speech, I pray you, as it belongs to you, nor do not saw the air with your arms thus. Ah, God. You wouldn't tell that to your 5-year-old. Anyway, that's what we're going to work on this afternoon. Try to get to establish context where you can practice listening to the action as well as to the language and to the content. And what you want to be able to do, of course, is talk to people, tell them a story by accessing the action. And as I will say ad nauseum this afternoon, that's a matter of creating the thing in yourself and then reporting on it. All right, time to go. Lunchtime. Good session.
Around the circle quickly, and everybody introduce themselves, herself, himself. Tell us who you are and what it is you do and how you find yourself here. Applying those rules of conversation that we have, total attention and eye contact and whatnot. You don't have to give us a complete biography, but let us know something about who you are. Maybe if you have it on the tip of your tongue, you could tell us what you might take away from sessions like this morning and what you think this afternoon might be. What relevance does it seem to be having to you so far? But don't go into that in detail if the strike you as interesting. And again, we won't go around the circle, we'll just wait. The Quakers have a wonderful phrase, we will proceed as way opens.
My name is Felipe Barroso.
Can you talk louder?
Okay, yeah, so my name is Felipe Barroso. I work for IBM. I find myself here because we had 2 openings at our company to send individuals here to pick up on some things, so I happen to be one of those individuals. And thus far, it's been actually a pretty good experience because I've learned so far that as part of understanding and being more focused and understand what other people are saying, you kind of first have to relax yourself and get rid of all the tension that you first have in order to be a better listener and understander. So that's one thing that I've picked up thus far. So.
All right. Great.
Hello, my name is Michelle Legier. I'm a product owner.
Louder.
My name is, even my voice is just low. My name is Michelle Legier, and I'm a product owner for Agile in South Boston. I deliver the Agile meeting. I love it. Ryan Roda.
Yeah.
He's a visible business at Agile for about 6 months this past year. So I learned about Agile meetings from him. And being I can't to get here.
Good.
And,
don't forget to talk to everybody.
Okay. And I can't wait to get here, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Good. Okay.
Well, my name is Eleanor Slumba. I'm an arts consultant and a Scrum Master. I am thinking of working with boards, the arts organizations that I work with. There will be application from the session because people get very tense talking about deficits and grants and how things look in the field for arts funding, and there might be some ways to introduce play and building engagement as well. So trying to connect those 2 worlds.
Thank you.
I'm Nancy Rachel Underwood, and I'm an independent Agile coach, and well, I should say being Agile. And what I find really matters in coaching is people have to believe that you understand their problem. And part of my background does that for me, but also paying attention and giving them the space to talk about what's on their mind also does that. And so this relates to it.
Good. Don't forget, everybody listening, eye contact. Don't let her see the top of your head. Okay? That's it. A major thing about listening is your presentation of an organism that is engaged in this activity. Whereas if you're sitting back with your feet up on the desk looking out the window, it can be hard for your petitioner to feel included. So we're going to practice that, especially practice it from the listening point of view. Be sure that you're engaged with the speaker. All right, carry on.
My name is David Rosenberg. I'm here because I'm one of the members of the planning team that is organizing this event. And what I hope to gain from this deep dive session in particular is better skills at understanding where people are coming from. I've been told that in negotiations that I'm good at understanding what I want, but that I'm not very good at understanding what other people want. And in mediation, it's necessary to make both parties feel that you really understand them, that they've been heard, so that they can get past the venting and to the point where they can start listening to other people themselves. And so I hope to learn the skills to not only understand, but make sure people feel understood.
That's a nice distinction. It's good to have people understand, but it's even better to have them feel like they've been understood. Okay, good, thank you.
I'm Jason Braley.
Louder.
Hi, I'm Jason Braley. I work at Drager Medical. I'm a Scrum Master. And I'm here mostly because, I'm here at this session mostly because I find myself sort of developing a tendency to steamroll people, especially members of my team. So I have kind of a larger personality, so I'm trying to really tune in on, you know, techniques to stop myself from doing that, basically.
Very good.
I'm Richard Kasparowski. I'm an Agile coach manager at Nokia. I'm here as a session leader for games with motion for self-management tomorrow. If you like to do a funny walk, whatever you call it. We're going to do some stuff like that tomorrow in that game session. I'm also facilitating the open space incentive. I'm here with you and all of you because I'm really interested in acting in theater as a way to connect with people better and bring that to my work.
Good. Well, this is the home base for that. Okay. All right.
So I want to appreciate that from you. And I'll just also add that, you know, what got me into it was to improve the technical work. There were practices that could only work if the team got together. And I knew it would only work if they voluntarily participated in it. So if you're in a spot where it's not working for you and you're being told you have to do it, then something's going wrong. And I'll just leave it at that. And maybe we chat sometime before the conference is done. Because some of us fought hard to be able to work this way. It doesn't feel right that anybody should be compelled if it's not right for them.
Okay.
It's all on one big table, other mentioned but
Who else? Okay, we're just going around the circle once. Yeah.
My name is John Benz. I've been project manager and technical support manager for most of my career. And a lot of mostly high pressure situations where you're trying to solve an issue because the customer's going down or a tight deadline. So I feel, and I've done a lot of customer facing interaction with both pre-sales and post-sales. And I think I'm pretty good at it, but the problem I have is when I'm dealing with something where I know there's an issue that needs to get solved, and you got somebody that wants to talk on and on, it's just, I want to get them on target and get it solved and still be courteous to them. The other thing I end up doing is with people I know very well, as soon as I think I figured out what they're trying to tell me, I have a great tendency to cut them off and go on to the next thing. Get done and down with solving the issue. And I've been in meetings where people wanted to talk for 2 hours about, let's talk about our process and stuff, and all I want to do is, we've got 3 things we got to get done. They got to get done by Friday. Let's get on with it. We don't need to sit here and talk for 2 hours. And the tendency is it ends up being a negative thing for me because I want to push them into let's take some action here and go talking. So I need to learn to listen respectfully, but at the same time keep it on target.
Good. Anybody else? Okay, so you know my name is Devin. I'm a person who did theater for his whole life. A lot of the theater I did was teaching it to people in our nation's colleges and universities. And a lot of the rest of it was on stage and backstage in the professional theater. I came to this kind of thing because a student of mine called me up one day, a guy who'd been in playwriting and theater classes, and he called me from the Harvard Business School, asked me if I remembered him, and I said yes I did, and he asked me if I would like to join him on a research project. The thing that had struck him that he used in his first book was as a demonstration that I gave about release. And it was given to me by a great acting teacher.
And it was like this. He took the pen and he held it and he says, watch this, I'm going to control this pen. See, this is going to do exactly what I want it to do. And it can't do anything else but what I want it to do. Right. Check this out. You see this pen? I'm going to control it. I'm going to make it do exactly what I want it to do. See that? Just what I want. Well, for an actor, that was like opening a curtain. Just an amazing new idea. But then I began to think about it when Rob asked me to talk to him. This was Rob Austin, who was the author with me on these books that we've written. I began to see immediately what he had seen, and that was that this is an idea that's not limited to the theater. And then as I began to learn a little bit about software and software development, I began to realize that the process of agile software development, and by the way, if I have done this many a time, when I show the Agile manifesto to people in my business, they look at it and say, well, duh. What? Of course. Anybody knows that. It's really quite interesting. And the idea that you guys could all be excited about this is just baffling. Anyhow, I show that to them and they all say, well, yeah, of course. So, but when I began to look into it, especially with Rob, the similarities between an agile approach to software and a rehearsal process in the theater are comically apt. What we do in the theater is we make one, we look at it, we talk it over, and then we make another one. And we're all real clear on the fact that the first one we made is the material we're going to use for the second one. We're going to add stuff, we're going to drop stuff off. There's no dropping stuff off. There's no delete button on human beings. It's all there all the time. And when you get that in the theater, it's really exciting. I mean, there are plenty of people in the theater who simply bark out orders and expect people to follow those orders. I once was in a show where the guy told me, he absolutely told me, well, I like to keep my actors on a rolling log. And so every time either of us did anything, we got told that was not good enough, we'd have to do something better. Awful. Anyway, we don't do that anymore. So anyway, I've discovered the similarities between these things and then recognized that the application was, as I say, just comically right. So since then, I've been meeting from time to time with people like you to bring this stuff along. I know one of the main things I've been pretty careful about, and I think fairly successful in maintaining, and that is I really try hard not to show you how this applies to your work. I'm going to just lay it out there and you practice it and take home what you can. Leave back what you can. But I won't be telling you or helping you figure out what to do with this stuff. I happen to know in my heart that it's good for you. Well, I've been a parent too, haven't I? I know that very well. I know what's good for somebody. And you guys can, you'll have to be figuring out how it's going to work for me. Somebody once asked me, well, what do you know about software development? And I said, I don't know the first thing about it. What I do know is how you do it. And think about that for a minute, and that's kind of the level at which we're talking here. I want to present you with stuff that is going to help you, but I don't know how you're going to apply it at all. And I'm not going to try to learn that. I think my ignorance of that is a plus, not a minus. Because I would just get confused if I tried to help you. So, all that said, that's enough. We can start. Okay. Now, the idea of getting ourselves in the room, getting your body in the room and your mind in the room is an old-timey one. And it's hard for those of us who do stuff that you cannot do unless you are in that exalted place that Michael was calling the zone or the flow. Those are all names for persons who are fully concentrated on what they're doing. And there are some kinds of work that you can do without being in that situation, but there are other kinds that you can't. You can't really come up with new ideas unless you are in that place where you're totally focused. I don't know about those words, flow and zone and everything, because again, the guy's concentrated. And you could see if it's a basketball player leaping into the air and flying 100 feet and dunking the ball. Of course he's concentrated. You could see, you know, the jocks have it, they know that. And when I was teaching acting, I'd have these wonderful classes which would be divided among jocks and what we used to call the smoke and wear black a lot crowd. The kids who had come from High School Musical and were star actors and they knew everything there was to know about acting. And the jocks would put those guys in the shade routinely. They could do it better. And come to find out, well, simple enough, they knew how to concentrate. Because there would be somebody over with you're not paying attention. Talk. And you get that. And they were very familiar with deferred gratification and with concentration and with achieving that sense of being thoroughly focused on what you're doing. You cannot play right tackle unless, by golly, you're able to get into that state about 40 times an afternoon. You just can't. So anyhow, that's where all of this stuff began. And also, you know, to learn that there's a lot that your body and your, what Stanislavski used to call plastique, can teach you and help you do. And then there's a whole school of acting that says, well, if you make the gesture, the feeling will follow. And sometimes, by golly, that's true. It really works. It doesn't work all that well for me, but it works. So let's, we're going to go right to concentration. But the first thing we want to do is just get up and jump around a little bit and sort of stir up lunch and so make sure we know we're here. Okay, so just hop up on your feet. We don't have to move the chairs or anything. Just get up and wiggle around a little bit. Yeah.
Don't hit me this time.
On a table. I'm on right there with it.
Shake them up in the air a little bit. Really relax. Just really jiggle with their edge and then let go. Okay. Now, that edge, I want to just make a remark about that while you're all standing here getting into the swing of things. The edge, we talked about it very briefly, that's where the work takes place. When you get to the place where you haven't got any more, you can't do any more, that's the place where you're going to get good. And what we talk a lot about is getting out of your comfort zone, And I have difficulty with that language. And the way I like to think about that is that the work happens when you feel the stress. You know, it's rep 5 with the dumbbell that begins to hurt. And when it hurts, then you know that you're getting somewhere. Now, ordinarily hurting is not a good thing. Most of the time, it's not a good thing. When you're in the weight room, it is a good thing. When you're in the swimming pool, it's a good thing. When you are trying to dream up how to do something, it's a good thing. And what we want to do when you're thinking about this idea of an edge is you want to think of becoming comfortable on the edge. And by comfortable, we don't mean stress-free or laid back or mellow or anything like that. We mean to suggest that it's okay, and I'm okay with it. So that by rep 10, I can barely move the damn thing. It hurts like crazy, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, but I'm okay with the fact that it hurts. And when you're in a situation, I'm thinking about you guys that are hating the stand-up or pissed off at Scrum, and I can certainly see that. There's a sense in which maybe you can do a little jujitsu on that and recognize that your discomfort has to do with a disconnect between you and it, and maybe the job is to figure out what that is and to try to bring that together. The best way to come up with something new is to take two things that don't work. You take oil and you take liquid, vinegar or something, and they don't work. Mix them together and stir them up the right way and throw an egg in, and they do work. And you've got mayonnaise. So that's just something to think about this business of getting out of your, quote, comfort zone. All that means is getting up on your edge and recognizing that that's where you do the good one. Okay? All right, sit down and let's go to concentration. And I'm going to tell you a couple of good stories.
What are you clicking in?
The two students of Zen are walking along the lake shore. And one says to the other, "Oh, my teacher is the most amazing man. He can do wonderful things." One of the things that he did the other day was he walked out on the surface of this lake and he gave us a little talk, standing on the surface of the water. And then he walked back in, and his feet weren't even wet. Wow, what a guy. And his comrade said, "Yeah, that's really something. That's amazing. Now, my teacher can do something even more spectacular, if you want to know." What could be more spectacular than walking on water? Well, my guy, he can do one thing at a time. Think about that for a minute. You can do one thing at a time. That's Archimedes' lever. I mean, you can really push things around if you can just do one thing. If you do it fully, well, think about how amazingly magnetic. If we had a baby and we put it in the center of this room to force it, just futz around on its blanket, how effective would my lecturing be in that situation? There's no way. Because no actor wants to get anywhere near a baby or an animal of any kind. Although one, he's the subject of the next story too. The actor Clint Eastwood, when he was in his prime as an actor, he'd made a couple of movies with an ape. Any Which Way Blues or something. When there's this wonderful scene in one of them where, what's the Clyde, I think is the monkey's name. So Clint and Clyde come into the bar for their afternoon beer. And the barkeep gives the ape a beer and he gives Clint a beer. And they sit there companionably drinking their afternoon beer. And another guy comes in and he looks at this ape and says, "What the hell, this ape is drinking a beer?" And there's a little scene. And what you have to notice is that Clint could play the scene with the ape absolutely straight across. They were equals in the thing. When the new guy came in and tried to talk to the ape played him right out of the frame. The ape was so there, and this other guy was a very mere actor. Clint was so there that you couldn't tell the difference between him and the ape. What you saw is what was there. Now, here's another story about Clint and concentration. And it's my ideal of how to of the possibilities for concentration. He's making a movie called $1 Million Baby. See that movie? Good. Well, he's the money man. He wrote the script with a couple of other people. He's the director. He's the line producer. He's totally in charge of the entire thing. Right there. And he's playing the lead part. So, I don't know if you know what a movie set is like, but there's like 100 people who all have jobs to do, and they're all tricky and whatnot, and they all have to be coordinated so they finish up at the same moment. And the director is in charge of that, i.e. Clint. He's also in charge of playing the scene that we're going to talk about. The scene is in the church, in this tenebrous church, with naturally a band of light coming down and shining in the dust, you know, from the clerestory windows up there. And so we see in the frame, we see the front row of pews, and then Clint walks into the frame, and we see over his shoulder where he's going. And he walks over, and he turns around, hits his mark, and he turns around and he sits down. And as he sits down, of course, he sits right down into the shaft of light. And then the scene breathes for a second, and a tear comes down his cheek. Think about that for a moment. The guy is in charge of everything that is going on. He has supervised 100 different people. He is spending $500,000 a day of other people's money. And he's able to put all that aside, come in there. There's only one way in the world to make a tear flow down your cheek, and that is to create a feeling of sadness inside of you by concentrating on given circumstances. Probably, he's really good. He probably used the material of the play. He doesn't have to search in his life for some sad thing. He doesn't have to remember his puppy ran over back in the day or something. He's probably able to respond to the situation, the given circumstances. But he focuses so thoroughly that his mind controls his body and sends a tear down his cheek. And that's the only way that can be done. But he can do that in the midst of this chaos that is a movie set. It's bad enough being an actor on a movie set, but to be the #1 guy and then have to be an actor. Amazing. So I think of those as kind of the pinnacles of what concentration is capable of, and the things that we all strive for. Now, the deal is that no human person that we know of can concentrate, put their attention on one thing for more than a few seconds, 10 or 15 seconds max. Now, if you're a fakir and you want to lie on a bed of nails or something, you've trained yourself to do more than that. But you're not going to be able to do that kind of training. You're going to have to settle for something less. But you've got to accept the fact that you cannot focus on one thing for more than a few seconds. Accept that, and let's make it work for us. So, turns out that concentration is a 3-step exercise. Focus, your attention wanders, and you return. Okay? You focus, your attention wanders, and you return your attention to where you want it. That happens. That's what we do. So, focus, wander, return. Let's try, that's the educational plural, that means you guys. Let's do this. Set yourself in your chair and Alexander into the chair. What we did in releasing in the chair, that's all about a guy, an Australian actor named FM Alexander, who was an actor, lost his voice, and he discovered that the reason he lost his voice was a tension that he was carrying in his body. So he developed the whole science of releasing and relieving tension. And all actors study Alexander in order to be able to do that. So let's get into the chair, get books on the floor, and the verb is to Alexander, to get in the chair and get released, to get everything
so that you're perfectly stable and comfortable and able to sit for however long is required. Now, in order to work on this concentration thing, let's put your attention on breathing. Put your attention right out at the tip of your nose and feel the air coming in and out of your nose. Don't bother to close your eyes or anything yet, but just think about that and see if you can feel that air moving in and out of your nose. Okay? Now, shut down, put your attention on that breathing, and breathe in and out 4 times, count to 4, and when you reach 4, start counting again. When your attention wanders, which it will do, acknowledge the wander and return your attention to breathing. Okay? Now you guys are all pretty good already, so we're going to go a while on this. Let's go. I'll tell you when to stop. You don't know how long it's going to be. Just do this, and this is the exercise. Attention on breathing, nothing else. When your attention wanders, you acknowledge the wander, and then you deliberately return your attention to breathing. All right? Go. You're all already there. Excellent.
We good. Right. Yeah. That was pretty short. It seemed short or seemed long? Yeah. Long? Right. Okay. How'd you do you think? You able to come back? Feel all right? Yeah, that's classic. Any of you done meditation? Yeah, well, then you at least know ins and outs of it. But to put your attention on a content-free thing is really difficult. You can be gripped by something, like a good story. The subject for meditation really ought to be content-free, like a red spot at the tip of your nose. Okay, what about were you able to be fairly rigorous? Right. I won't say mechanically, straightforward and return. Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. But again, you really ought to be able, ultimately, to be able to pay total attention to what you're doing and yet be aware of all the things that go on around you. So you don't want to go into a trance. There's nobody pays for that. What you want to be able to do is to be just engaged in what you're doing fully and be aware but not distracted by everything else. All right, well, let's...
The way you characterized it as focus, wander, focus, left. So wandering is a bad thing, and that you complete yourself over.
Found it tougher after, but after some time, I was questioning the meaning behind it. After 3 minutes, what am I doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Did you come up with an answer?
And then, this is to improve your concentration, you have to get back to it.
Shut up, Eric. All right.
I have a comment to that.
Sure.
It's not a type A personality, a triple type A personality. And when I first started doing yoga and meditation, I couldn't keep my concentration for more than 15 seconds, and my little 5-minute brain would start wandering off, thinking through checklists of things I needed to do. And it's taken a long time to get past that and set that aside. And this is not enough time. I've done this for
Oh, yeah.
so lets the stress go, and it really centers you once you start giving into it.
Yeah, this is a really good point, and this is a nice takeaway. You can recognize that this is one of those things, like going to the gym or any number of stuff that you do, where the time you spend doing it is more than made up by your increased efficiency the rest of the day. It's just much better. Well, like Michael was talking about, having some fun once in a while, having a game. It just makes, you know, you're never wasting time. You go out to the gym, you spend an hour down there, you make up that hour. There's no problem, etc. So, good point.
How much time was it?
Oh, sorry, that was 5 minutes.
How long did it feel like?
How long did it feel like?
It felt like, oh, yeah, at least 15, 20.
Well, it's interesting because both of those times there was no time element to it. So I wasn't in time.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
It was irrelevant.
Yeah. So that's the guy who's doing his work. Good.
The first time, the wanderings were sort of brief and more connected with distractions out here or random thoughts. The second time through, the wanderings got more sophisticated and more integrated, and of course I wasn't timing my departures, but it could have been 30 seconds or a minute before I realized it was out there before that.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And it was actually, you know, I'd done some thinking, and it wasn't just a odd distraction. I was out somewhere and processing and then pulled back.
As you get more and more adept at plunging into the focus part, then your wanders become more and more engaging, more and more interesting, and oftentimes more and more valuable. Because this is a good source. Because when you get good at doing this, sometimes those wanders are really important. And if you're in a position to do it, it doesn't hurt to make a quick note in the middle of all this, so that you are able to harvest from them. Again, anytime you get free and let your mind go, wonderful things can happen. So
this to me is what works for me. Is this is similar? I think of it as an onion. As you peel back the skins, if you will. So the longer time you spend in it, the more you're peeling back, and sometimes I can just actually feel layers just coming off.
Good.
You can just get yourself to relax even greater and greater. So it's the longevity in there. Spend the time. The rewards are out there.
Yeah. Try to think of it as release, not relaxing. We need a separation.
Yes.
It's not. I'm not making a big deal about that's my definition, but we do need to have two words.
Good point.
To just, I'm kind of not about choosing a word and then using that as a term of art and keeping that. And so I would recommend that to you as a practice that distinguish among things. And you get to say, you can say what a word means. It's just a word. So go ahead and do that. Yes?
I wanted to mention, follow up on what you said about when you first started doing meditation. Because I remember when I first had a first class in it, is that one of the things that the guy said to stress was, you know, not to think that you're going to sit down and do an hour. You know, that you really should, all you can do is 15 seconds or all you can do is a minute, well, do that. And when you can do that, then increase it.
That's
And
good.
a little bit
That's
more,
a good
a little
point.
bit more. So I just want to make sure nobody's running off.
Yeah.
Because it seems impossible that. Why bother?
Very good. Okay. All right, let's move on. I'm going to now put this to work in less pure situations where the distractions will be larger and your need for focus will be greater. And we're going to combine that with the things you learned about release in the morning, and that is you've got to release in order to be able just to do what the assignment is. And then focus on it in order to do it well. Oh, shoot.
Just release it.
The great Irish, yeah, the great Irish poet, Richard Sherry, who wrote School for Scandal, School for Scandal and the Libels. He once said to a friend of his, "My memory, why, sir, 'tis but a memory." Alas, too true. Okay, so now we're going to do a couple of games that will require you to do this exercise. You will have to do it in order to be able to do the game. I'll just ask you this is one of those teacherly questions. You've got it that it's the return that is the important part of this exercise. If you haven't got it, get it that the return is the thing you're really working on. Anybody can focus. Anybody can imagine stuff. Not everybody can acknowledge the imagination in the return. And that's what you want to get fast. When you get good at this, that's what happens. You get so fast returning that there doesn't appear to be any break. It's like a movie image, you know, because fast enough so that you don't notice the break. It's just bang, you're back, bang, you're back. And thus, wandering becomes less and less odious because you're not wasting your time. I notice that guys in your work are real fiends about wasting their time. You're under time pressures a lot. And we retirees, we don't know anything about that. So, anyhow, so it's up, clear the space of chairs, get your shoes off, and choose a partner. Somebody you didn't work with last time. Now, you see if there's an odd number, you're the partner, and if there isn't an odd number, if there's an even number, then you have to sit down. When we're sitting and you're looking at that, you can use my jacket.
Okay, I got a volunteer
Yeah, I
member
have
here
it,
too, so.
Okay. All right. We're all set?
Yeah.
So you need a partner?
Do you want to try not being that?
Sure.
We can do it. Sure. Okay.
Everybody got a partner except?
Open.
Any partner?
Okay, so.
Don't like it. No partners are fine.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you guys are partners.
No, your partner here.
All right. Here's the deal. Oh, okay, good. You got the partner?
No, we should probably go.
I had instructions, so I was going to make sure that there was even parity and either be in or out in order to guarantee even parity.
Yes. So he's going to pull his chair back out of the way is what he's going to do.
For parity's sake.
All right, now.
Real-time parity?
Yes. Here, what we're going to do, we'll do it in partners, kind of cramming things together. Ordinarily, I'd have you do it separately a time or two. But what you're going to do as partners, the two of you, and you're going to help each other get to that spot. The thing is that it gets harder and harder for you to get to the spot the closer you are to it. So you have to battle this invisible force that's keeping you away from the thing that you desperately need to do. And you help each other. You can't talk in language words, but you can communicate however else you can. No words, just the two of you working your way toward getting to the spot, wherever it happens to be. If you should manage to help each other, somehow superhumanly lurch forward and one of you touch the spot, congratulate yourselves, throw up your arms, roll your eyes, and say yay, and then choose another spot and get right back on it. Okay? It repulses you more strongly each time, or as closer and closer you get to it. Okay? And every now and then, it might pulse and throw you back. Now, the thing to do here, the mind shift that you have to make, is that the importance is not efficient success. The importance is doing something big and interesting. This is an acting exercise. You're not supposed to solve the problem. That's not interesting. We won't buy a ticket to see that. What we will buy a ticket to see is you thrown back from the spot and tumbling over head over heels across the room. That's what this is interesting. Okay? So you got that? Or
Can we use sounds like no words but sounds?
you can make sounds if you like, but no language. Right?
I don't understand.
I'm sorry. I don't understand. Here's a spot on the wall. I'm desperate to reach it. I can't. Because it repulses me. No, that's the given circumstance. You're using your imagination. Only thing. Okay. You got it now? Yeah. Okay.
When you're
Quiet.
Are you trying to get the other person to follow you to that spot? Or
No, you're helping each other. You choose it together. You
oh,
just
you
say,
choose it together?
yeah, that's you. I'm sorry, this is my fault. You get to decide where the spot is, like human beings, and then you turn into exercise members, and you don't talk anymore. So you just stay right in the middle of that wall. Okay? Okay. Go. All right. So in partners, choose a spot now. All right? Ready? Ready, set, go! And of course, you're using the concentration to keep you on point. Yeah. Good. You make it as real as you can.
Next spot.
And you're going to help each other.
Okay.
This is advanced.
Yeah, I got this shot when they were in this circle, just to get a higher view, but now it's kind of working. What's going on?
And this is on a split.
I think we're supposed to.
What are these two over here? I know, right?
Okay,
This is the
let's
best
turn this
room.
around. Same partner. Get it. This is the concentration exercise. You have to put your attention on this idea, on these given circumstances. You put your attention there so thoroughly that your body can respond to it. If you try to pretend or fake it, you're A, you won't have any fun, and B, you'll look dumb. And there are many others who are sitting in judgment. So you really have to, you have to go ahead and release into this cockamamie pretense and see what happens. All right? So the spot hates you, you love the spot, you're going to help each other get there, ready, set, go. Yeah, right, you're going to help each other stay away. All right, go.
All right. Goes. How's that? That was a little bit more lively, except for certain persons. Crumbed out utterly.
Well, we got the same plug.
Don't make a problem when there isn't one.
I think we did a great problem solving.
Let's do one final thing for one final physical thing for this section, then we'll move on to the next thing. And in this case, it's by yourself. And again, we're attacking both of the subjects so far. That is, release. You have to release into the exercise in order to be able to do it, because it's so goofy and useless. And you also have to concentrate utterly in order to be able to do it, because it's so goofy and so useless. Okay? So find a space where you have a little room to move around. And I'm going to give you some given circumstances, and then you're going to behave within those given circumstances. And the motive that you have is you want to explore the given circumstances and the relationship between you and your body and the circumstances. Okay? You want to explore them as far as possible. You want to? But can you do it? Yeah.
Better never drink in my hand.
He's holding up the wall.
We understand.
The wall might fall.
That's all right. All right, so what we're going to do, the given circumstances are, the air is heavy and a fluid. Well, we know it's a fluid, but now it's a fluid that you can actually feel yourself move through. Heavy air. As you move your body through the air, it's very, very pleasant. The friction is terrific. And it doesn't do any good to flail and wave your arms about. What you have to do is really focus on this air and get it. See if you can create the feel of it on your skin and on your body, and concentrate, focus so fully on those feelings and return so quickly that in some cases, maybe not today because we're rushed one night, but if we were able to work on this for, let's say, another day or two, there would be, almost all of you would actually feel a moment where you felt the air be good. You would. And I mean, you would feel, you would be there. So I don't know if you'll get to that. That's a goal. And no, it's the result of right practice. Don't worry about it. You want to practice, you want to be right, work on the process, never mind the goal. That's a result.
Okay? So, the air is heavy, it has texture, and you move through it. You move slowly and carefully, and you groove on the good feeling of that air. Could be wrong with that. How could that be silly and mean? And you're all by yourself, public solitude. You might want to think the slower you move in this air, the funner it is. The groovier the air is. We hit it. Now you, yeah, I told you. That's right. Good. Take your time and really feel it.
You have some motion now for part of the thing you were doing.
You're going to create that feeling.
Meditating, yeah.
I guess that part will have to be made exciting with subtitles or music or
Right.
something.
I should mention that if you recognize yourself making a motion that you recognize from some other activity, change it. All right, conclude that. Take a break. Effect from the audience too. They're right there. Their attention is riveted to the stage. You are participating in that communal act. That's again why crowds are so amazing.
How is that being communicated from one audience member to another?
Magic. I mean, it's because it's happening, and because we are hardwired to respond.
So that really sort of gets to the point of what the communication mechanisms are through which I mean, it's visual is one possibility, but there are other things that are
you can watch the person's feeling. You feel when somebody next to you is fired up about something, don't you? Yeah. And if you're in a place where you're having practice and getting plus strokes for opening up and releasing into those acceptances, then, you know, when she responds to the play, no matter how I'm responding, let's say, I'm thinking, I'm Tennessee Williams, and I'm thinking, that babe is gonna, that guy doesn't know what, he just stepped into the mixer. And she's identifying with this poor lady who has been so tortured by all of this. The two of us are doing completely different things, but we're doing things. And so there's an intensity in the air, and there's a connection among us. All of us. Okay? If that's really counterintuitive, just park it. And don't try to resolve it now. But the next time you see a movie, or even read a book, or the next time your kid comes to tell you about some terrific adventure on the playground, some tragedy or some other thing, instead of listening to the content, which you've heard 1,000 times before, open up a little bit and listen to the action. And let yourself participate in the kids' attitude and actions about this event, you'll find it's much more interesting, and you'll find your kid, I hope not, but you might find him quite astonished that somebody's really listening to me for a change.
Isn't this the basis of empathy?
This is empathy.
Yeah.
And empathy and sympathy.
And what's interesting is a lot of us doing technology work, this won't make sense to you, but this is all news to us because we're low empathy people. we don't express a lot.
Exactly.
We don't express a lot. There's not a lot of emotional content in our work.
Right.
And it's really hard for us as low empathizers to notice this very low level emotion together.
You know,
That's
well,
why
high
we
level
use computers
emotion,
a
but
lot.
I think
There's
that's
always one way.
I got that.
So a lot of what we're doing today is great because it's helping us be more expressive and be more human. And
But
actually
you've
not
never been around a
understand.
developer when they figured out the bug.
Yeah.
Or when they fixed the bug, you can't get to the guys or girls that go out and install it, the customer as the hero. This developer got me the fix. And I'm going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
Well, you go there.
I had a funny experience of that just the other day of a student of mine with whom I studied a lot about programming and making websites and things. We talked about making websites according to the principles of play construction, dramaturgy. And so what his craze, his thing that he really likes to do is swing dancing. You know, dancing to the music of my youth. So that really speaks to me. I mean, I did all that dancing as just a natural thing growing up. When I was in junior high, we had a room set aside at lunch hour where you go and dance, you know, just at lunch. But I told this to a friend of mine, and she said, "Oh yeah," she says, "those nerds, they really like that swing dancing." They really dance to the And I thought, you know, I don't think of that as a pejorative term. That's just a classification. There are guys who think that way. And sometimes they can learn, like my pal, he learned a lot because he took lots of acting classes. He learned, he was, no, good. He couldn't act for sour apples. But he was serious and eager, and he learned the principles. He made sure that they became part of him, so that he brings to whatever it is he does in software, some arcane thing. He brings a whole bunch of history that is, I think, very useful and makes his work unique among his colleagues. And they value him in various ways, including huge paychecks, the like of which I never saw. But anyway, the fact that you guys are a class of people about which we can make an odious generalization, and that is that, generally speaking, you tend toward being low empathy types, partly because you have to put your attention away from all that stuff because the stuff that you're doing is so goddamn complicated and difficult. We know a guy in Denmark whose son was discovered to be pretty far along on the autism scale. He discovered this by his boy drew a picture that he couldn't understand at all. He spent a couple of days on this elaborate picture. And then, I don't know, weeks or some other time, he was looking through an atlas that is in the house, and he realized that this was the map of the atlas. This was the map of the territory, which was divided into squares, each of which was a map that was in the book. And this kid had reproduced this incredibly complex, difficult, detailed thing, absolutely accurately. Well, what did he do? He went out, he mortgaged his house, he sold his car, everything, and he started a business using autistic people to debug software. They could really do it. They could put the attention on it and come up with this stuff. Now, they need special help. They need work conditions that are by no means ordinary. But this guy it's a paying business for him. It costs the people who are paying for it 20% or even more extra. And the people are glad to pay it because they're getting 30 or 40% better performance from these folks who are, again, they're disabled in various ways, and they require management that is directed right at them, and that makes, what the hell, makes conditions safe for them to work. And one of the managers at this company finally twigged. He says, you know, I make all these arrangements for these guys. Why don't I make similar arrangements for the regular people? Bing! And sure enough, he got the idea that his job was to create a space for his teams so that they could work as productively and creatively as it was in them to do. And that was his job. Not barking out the orders or explaining the process. Hell, he didn't know the process. These guys are way over his head. But setting up a space in which they could be productive. And he said it turned him around. That has adjusted your view of the story. And the story is going to come out a little different next time.
Same part.
Yeah, next time you tell it. And that, too, will be something of interest, and you'll want to know about that, and you'll want to be able to discuss that with your partner. So, you know, your partner might ask you, well, gee, what happened to the guy who, well, you know, I realized when I saw how interested you were in such and such, I realized this guy, he's not all that interested, so I took him out of the story. And then your partner might say, oh, wow, that was, I really was interested. And you say, okay, I'll put it back in. The thing should be infinitely fungible, according to the situation. The story you tell, the story I tell you is not the story I tell somebody else. They're just stories. And they're all true. They may not be factual in the same way. There,
So said Bill
key
Clinton.
distinction.
It's all true, depends on our point of view.
All right, so what do we mechanically want to do? Just say there's a session, and if 12 people show up, we'll do it, and if 12 people don't show up, we won't do it. But we should know about the form of the things that you do. And if you could get to thinking about constructing a beautiful process as well as an effective process, life will take a turn for the up, I'm sure. So, anyhow.
What was the name of that notebook?
Excuse me?
What's the name of that notebook?
The new book is called The Soul of Design, Harnessing the Power of Thought to Make Extraordinary Products. And it's about those products that are so much better than the others for reasons that you can't understand.
That's it. He has to hand out not only the title, but
Yeah, I have it.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I hope there's enough.
You have to talk about artful making, the earlier book of it.
Yeah. Well, artful making, I now think is kind of simple. It's noticing the similarity between any iterative making process and theater rehearsal. And you can learn to be a better iterative maker of anything if you pay attention and learn what actors and directors do. They do exactly what you all want to do. And if I'm right in what I hear and understand, exactly what you all often don't get. I've heard some really interesting stories about what people do in companies that have translated themselves over to Agile. And then you find out what the guys in the future physically do. You've got to wonder what they mean, how they manage to put up with that. Yeah.
I've been slow to use the analogy of behavior versus affiliations because a lot of times I call people that are building safety critical things and they really are delivering some finished stuff in the iterations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, do you have any suggestion about that?
No, I don't.
I
do know the theater that is represented within that book, Artful Making, is an ideal theater. It's very difficult to create all those conditions. But I'm kind of high on this notion of maybe this is a thing to just say kind of in conclusion, but it's often extremely useful to create what I call an idea or ideal. That is to propose all of the things that the thing you're doing must include and have. And the trick is to propose that without having to rationalize it or make it unified or possible. But that's the guy we talk about all the time is Aristotle, and he wrote the book called Poetics. And that is a description of the theoretically best tragedy. Tragedy that plays were the most complicated thing he knew about. So he wrote about that when he wanted to write about making. So he talks about how tragedies are made, what they're made of, who they're made for, all that kind of stuff. But he doesn't hesitate to put in contradictions. He talks about magnitude. A thing should have a certain size. That's a metaphor. Obviously, a play doesn't exactly have size. But it should be, any made thing should be as large as is possible and consistent with being understandable, but as small as is necessary. And it should be as complicated as possible, but it should be as simple as necessary. So you have these contradictions back and forth. And he's also, Aristotle, he's also full of what I really like are, what's the word? Where the proposition and the conclusion are the same thing.
Tautology?
Yeah, tautology. You can get an awful lot of good out of tautology. The main one is you make a thing so that it is the best possible thing of its kind. Period. A thing is made to be a perfect thing. Well, that's dumb, of course. Start thinking about it. Rationalize it, pick it apart. Let that be your guide in thinking about how you might set up a process for making it, or how you might think about it. You'll find that tautology is really productive and useful. And it's even more productive and useful because we have such a counterintuition about that kind of thing. We want things to be meaningful, efficient, etc. And then you throw out this thing, well, naturally, why are you making this? Well, I'm making it so that it will be the best thing ever made. Oh, okay. What's its purpose? Well, its purpose is to be really good. Well, if you read Steve Jobs' biography, you've got that living, breathing, and pissing you off, because that's everything about that book is just like that. I mean, that guy was insane about that. Those screws are the wrong color. You can't use those. You're just a totally bad person because you put those in there. Well, why should they be that color? Because they should be. And that's why. They should be, because they should be. And, well, the stuff speaks for itself, doesn't it? It's pretty hard to beat that technique. If you happen to be a triple-bladed lunatic as well as a genius. I recommend that biography, by the way. That's a really interesting piece of reading. That guy was a piece of work. And you realize how we're not all good or bad. We're all mixed up together. And he's like the little girl with the curl. There was a little girl who had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead. When she was good, she was very, very good. And when she was bad, she was horrid. And that's our Steve. When he was bad, he was horrid. Okay. So,
Apple's success in Steve Jobs' management style, when I first thought of it, made me question everything.
Yeah.
Because he's the anti-agile manager of one of the most successful organizations in history.
Yeah.
And I was talking to one of the managers of that. And so, does this mean we're doing the wrong thing? And what he pointed out is, if the world is full of Steve Jobs,
Question. Thou art free. You ask other people why they're doing what they're doing. You don't ask Steve. You ask other dramatists why their plays are structured the way they are. You don't ask Bill. They are the way they are, and that's it. Well, that makes perfect sense to me. I've known actors where they come into the room and they light you up with something that is just so totally off the wall. If you said to that actor, well, how'd you ever get that idea? The actor would just look at you and say, I'm not telling. Mainly because he has no idea. He doesn't know. He got that idea. What more do you want? And if he can do it 8 times a week for the next year or so, you'll all be rich. Won't that be nice? So anyway, yeah, I think that idea, others abide the question, thou art free, that's a good thing to have in your mind. Because there are people that are beyond. And there isn't any point in stressing about that. I mean, it's plenty, you can imagine stressing about it if old Steve has dressed you down in front of 200 people, sent you off crying into the wings. Yeah, that's depressing and stressing. And you wish he didn't do it.
Yeah, great story.
As long as you
Yeah. Yeah, when you came back